Good evening and welcome once again to the South Australian Amateur Soccer League program. Ray Topless will be joining me very shortly after he's finished on the phone. Last minute panic with the phone ringing, so if you do wish to catch us before the program, we're usually here for around about 15 to 20 minutes before the program goes to air. So if you can get in a bit early and keep it brief, we would appreciate it. Ideally, if you can get something in writing to us, either dropped off at the station or either personally to myself or Ray, that's even better. Thanks very much for that. We'll start with the league results. Firstly, the Saturday League. Modbury City 0, Adelaide University 2, and an identical reserve score. Adelaide Inter 1, Flinders University 2, reserves 0-4. CBC 3, Eastern Suburbs 2, reserves 3-1. Agua 1, Sturt Marion 1, reserves 1-0. Sunday League Division 1, Salisbury Inter 1, Adelaide Ammonia 1, reserves 3-0. Croydon Park 2, Tea Tree Gully 0, reserves 3-all. Parafield Gardens 2, Macedonian United 2, reserves 3-1. Elizabeth Downs 0, Elizabeth Vale 2, reserves 3-0. Newton 2, Fulham United 2, reserves 1-2. In Division 2, Para Hills 4, West Beach 0, reserves 3-2. Tubemakers 1, Adelaide United 1, reserves 3-0. Para Hills East 3, Ross Trevor 0, reserves 5-1. Salisbury Florina 1, Salisbury East 2, reserves 1-3. Paraka 2, RG Austria 3, reserves 0-3. Division 3, Seaford 2, Brahma Lodge 1, reserves 2-0. Campbelltown 2, West Torrens Bacalla 1, reserves 3-0. Elizabeth Grove 1, McGill 4, reserves 0-2. Post Tel 1, NAB 2, reserves 3-2. Grange Lion 0, Elizabeth South 7, reserves 0-all. Division 4, Broadmeadows 2, Paravista 0, reserves 5-0. Noarlunga 2, Onkaparinga 1, reserves 2-0. Calabria 4, Ingle Farm 6, and strangely an identical reserve score. Murraybridge United 2, Kilkenny United 2, reserves 1-4. The Cove 9, Parafield United 0, reserves 8-1. In Division 5, South Coast 3, Adelaide Villa 1, reserves 4-1. Athelston Lions 4, Woodside 1, reserves 3-1. Parabanks 3, Eastern City 3, reserves 0-2. Brighton City 0, Murraybridge City 1, reserves 9-1. Chilean 2, Hindmarsh 4, reserves 0-5. Latin America 1, Adelaide Eagles 8, reserves 1-11. Westminster 3, Elizabeth City 4, reserves 1-all. Manapara 2, Athelston, can't quite see who, that's not Athelston Lions. Ray, can you help me in Division 6? We'll come back to that. Anyway, it was 2-1 to Manapara and reserves 1-all. Valley View 1, Messinian 0, reserves 4-1. Brahma United 1, North East United 4, reserves 0-3. And Ray, the Athelston side in Division 6 is it Athelston Lions? We're still trying to...
Athelston Rovers.
Athelston Rovers, sorry, I couldn't read the writing here. I didn't think it was Lions. Thanks very much, Ray. And belatedly, welcome to the program. We'll hear from Ray in a moment. In Division 7, Banastera 2, Modbury Jets 3, reserves 4-3. San Marco 2, Strathalbyn 1, reserves 1-2. Dynamo SA 2, Salisbury United 4, reserves 2-5. Division 8, Elizabeth Vale Rangers 0, Salisbury Villa 4, reserves 0-5. Eastern Park 10, Croatia 1, reserves 3-2. Elizabeth East 2, Elizabeth Field 2, reserves 1-0. Division 9, Adelaide Inter 1, 2 Wells 4, Curly Flats 0, Social Security 8, Barcelona 3, Casino Aces 2. Division 10, Para Hills versus Valley View has been postponed until 1:15 next week. Croydon Park 4, Elizabeth Downs 1, Fulham United 0, Ross Trevor 3, Murraybridge United 2, Salisbury East 0 on a forfeit. Noarlunga 4, Para Hills East 1. In Division 11, South Coast 4, Brahma Lodge 4, Tubemakers 2, Elizabeth Downs 1, Parafield Gardens 2, Elizabeth South 1, Tea Tree Gully 6, Elizabeth Vale Rangers 0, The Cove 1, Para Hills East 0, and the only junior game played yesterday was Athelston 1, Tea Tree Gully 3. Right, Ray, I've got match reports here from Salisbury Inter, first and reserves, and also from Valley View versus Messinian. Also have the cup draw, which we'll talk about last, and some league tables. But in between time, perhaps you'd like to just give us what you've got and give me a little bit of a breather.
Thanks, David. Good evening. And this is Ray Topless. I was a little bit late tonight, owing to a club ringing me up late. Nevertheless, they got in.
Has been mentioned, Ray.
Thank you. Elizabeth Downs versus Elizabeth Vale in the first division. This is a game that I officiated on, David, so good local derby.
You must have been brilliant, Ray.
I was. Hard, physical. Not a lot of soccer played, or good soccer I should say, but nevertheless played in good spirit. The Downs, well, I think Charlie's got a bit of work to do there. It was 2-0. Goal in each half by the Vale, and number 4 Mark Chumley scoring the first goal, which came a minute prior to half-time. Come out in the second half, and Elizabeth Vale, number 9 Earl Puddler, made it 2-0. About 20 minutes into the second half, and the Downs were awarded a penalty, and well, the penalty was put wide. And I think if they'd have scored, then it could have swung round a little bit. But nevertheless, Croydon Park 2, Tea Tree Gully 0. Well, Dave, Croydon Park have really got off well this season, and what can you say about them? Jimmy Mitchell, once again, he scored the first, and both goals scored in the first half. David, Craig Burley scoring the second, and well, that was the score, 2-0. Best players, there weren't any, apparently. It was a good team effort, and he didn't want to say, well, yes, it was him or it was him. And it was a good team effort. And Croydon Park are going really well.
Actually, Ray, I had a couple of well-deserved ales after the game I had yesterday and at the Vale in one of the lower division games, and talking to a couple of old friends there, and a guy turned up from Croydon Park, and he was very, very elated with their performance on the day.
Oh, right. Top stuff. And you carrying on with Division 1, Dave?
Yeah, it's Salisbury Inter versus Adelaide Ammonia, and we nominated it. You could just about pick any result you liked, and well, Ammonia did take a point, and we'll find out how. The game started in hot conditions, with Mike Kenyon making his first team league debut to replace an injured Dino Galina. Spectators visiting Inter's ground, expecting to see the good brand of soccer Inter and Ammonia can play, would have been disappointed with the first half's performance. With play swinging from end to end without method by either team, chances were few, with the highlight being a Larry Moore free kick, which the Ammonia keeper did well to tip over the bar. 2 minutes later, Mick Yardley collected the ball on the edge of the box and blasted wide. The half-time scoreline was 0-0 and earned Inter a tongue-lashing from coach Eric Norman that could be heard at Florina's ground. And a little bit more about that later, Ray. The second half started with Carlo Bitotto coming on for Mark Dow. Inter had their backs to the wall with a shot in the second minute by Ammonia's Tim Alder going over the bar, and then Ammonia's number 9 breaking through to beat Inter's keeper Phil Meredith to see his shot cannon off the post and cleared upfield. Inter had to wait until the 27th minute when Steve Bellew, who had just come on to the park from Mick Yardley, with his first touch sent a crossover to see Rick Pastore head home. The next 10 minutes was all Inter, with chances from Rick Pastore and Peter Mercurio going narrowly wide. Ammonia made a substitution in the 40th minute with immediate results. A cross from Steve Mitros was pushed home by the substitute. 2 minutes later, a shot from Steve Mitros again went narrowly wide. The resulting goal kick was sent upfield into Ammonia's half to see Robbie Winter being brought down. Inter's free kick was sent to Peter Mercurio, who could only watch his header scramble across the goal to be pushed out for a corner. The game finished at 1-1, which was a fair result. And there's also a word about the official in this game, Ray. Ron Rock stamped his authority on the game early, enabling the game to flow. Common sense prevailed, which resulted in no bookings, a creditable performance. And we'll just hold off on their reserve report. Ray, you've got some Division 2 highlights, I believe?
Yes, Dave. Penna Hills 4, West Beach 0. And that backfired for you, David.
Yeah, so tip West Beach to win.
That's a point you owe me.
Okay.
Bud Hilton not home and Fred Jones not home, so I can't give a report on that game. Tube Makers 1, Adelaide United 1. Now this was the match of the day, Dave.
We nominated it, could be.
Paul Bevington, the scorer for Tubies, and Mikic, the scorer for Adelaide United. I believe it was a top game, end-to-end stuff. Tube Makers dominating the midfield. Zaffron shining for Adelaide United, as he always does, but also taking a little bit of shine off Zaffron, George Flackner, the evergreen George, great goalkeeper, still getting there. Four great saves he made, a couple in each half, and Tubby's goal coming from a George Reeves flick on, and there we go. 1-1 at half time.
And full time?
Yeah.
Right.
Penna Hills East 3, Ross Trevor 0. D. Evans scored in the first half. K. Ryan, he scored a goal in the second half, along with T. Atkinson. This was a good crowd support for both sides. Ross Trevor started off well. The first 25 minutes was Ross Trevor's. Couple of good shots, but nothing was taken, chances were missed, and well, Penna Hills East walked away with 2 points. Salisbury East 2, Salisbury Florina 1. Tony Ansell, the scorer of both goals for that for the East, Dave.
Yeah.
A goal in each half. I'm told it was 1-0 at half time. Florina were awarded a penalty, and Jim DeLica scoring for Florina. Florina hit the woodwork a couple of times early on, and also a few yellow cards dished out in that game, Dave.
Right.
But I'm also told man of the match for Salisbury East was Chris Parkinson, goalkeeper. Paraka 2.
Ray, just before you leave that game,
Yes.
I'd just like to toss in something which I had in discussion with somebody today.
Yes.
I guess it's fairly well known that the lads at Salisbury East like to have a bit of a socialise after the game, home or away, and they'd like to see the opposing sides do the same thing at the East, and that normally happens. Yesterday, a few of the lads decided to stay behind at Florina and do the right thing and put a little bit of money into their club for them. They didn't stay very long because about all they could hear was arguments and bickering going on between players, officials and supporters. So they left and walked over to Inter's ground, and a few of them stayed there until as late as 9 o'clock. So if the clubs want the visiting teams to do the right thing, well, I think those sort of things ought to be kept within the club and sorted out at training nights, and I won't say any more about that.
Yes, good on you, Dave. I go along with you on that one. Paraka 2, Austria 3. And I had a lengthy discussion on this game with the coach from Austria, Ron Hawkshaw, who tells me this was a good game, and 5 good goals, all scored in the first half. And plenty of half chances by Austria. At least they say they could have gone 1 or 2 more, but I do believe that Paraka hit the woodwork a few times early in the first half, as early as the first minute of the game. A. McManus and Eddie Tollner scorers for Paraka. Rick Pilgerman, Ray Inless and Ian Thompson, the scorers for Austria. And good on you, Austria. You're going well there.
Yes, my word.
There was a good game down there at Lyon. My old club, Elizabeth South, David, putting 7 past Lyon.
Yep.
And I'm told that just because they scored 7, it didn't make Lyon look very good, but apparently Lyon are a good side. They just met a better side on the day. Elizabeth South, Greg Barber, scorer of 3 goals, George Stubbs 1. That was the score at half-time, was 4-0. Greg Barber again scoring 2 more goals, and Trevor Blackwood, the evergreen Trevor, scorer of 1 goal. South Events played very well, but it was a good team effort, and I'm told by the coach, well overdue. So come on, lads, keep the good things going.
Ray, one of the Grange Lyon players works with me, and of course I gave him a fairly good serve during the day. He's an ex-Veneto player. Of course, Veneto folded when they merged with Adelaide City last year, and he reckons he's being played out of position, so that's the only reason they lost 7-0. So if you're listening, Cosy, bad luck, mate.
Good on you, mate.
Ray, what else you got there?
Division 4, which was just a snippet on the phone prior to me coming in the studio today. Broadmeadows would like to just have this mentioned that in the last cup round they played Paravista and got walloped 5-0. Well, Broadmeadows turned it round and beat Paravista 2-0, and their goal scorers on the day were Graham Elliott 1 and Bruce White 1. And man of the match was Ian Oliver. Good on you, Broadmeadows.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've got one from our consistent correspondents, Valley View, Ray. They were playing one of the newcomers to the league, Messinian Association.
Right.
In the first 20 minutes, Messinian survived by the skin of their teeth as the Valley hit them with an all-out assault, with Neil Dollery putting a shot just wide and Julian Hankins having an effort turned onto the bar by the goalkeeper. Then Mick Phillips went desperately close in an astonishing goalmouth scramble that saw 3 shots blocked almost on the line. After 25 minutes, a nasty injury to Paul Burge upset Valley's pattern and for 10 minutes looked a bit disorganised. But then they settled down and got on with the game. From a deep free kick, Phillips again had a close effort. Half-time was 0-0, but Valley could be disappointed because they had enough opportunities to be 3 or 4 goals up. Valley began the second half in determined fashion, but again could not find the finishing touch. But the defence was playing well, and Messinian were unable to get many shots on goal. Kevin Piles was brought down after 60 minutes to add more bite up front, and soon after Neil Dollery had a shot that carried plenty of power but was turned over by the keeper. After consecutive corners, Valley at last got the goal they deserved in the 75th minute. A near-post corner from Mark Harrison was flicked on by Steve Richardson, and Alan Wolfe was at the far post to score the vital goal. Apart from a late scare from a free kick, which was hit high and wide, Valley comfortably played out time to run out 1-0 winners. And just before we do take that inter-reserve report, I hope I can decipher the hieroglyphics for the league tables, or part of the league tables. Firstly, in the Saturday League, CBC have 6 points and they lead Eastern Suburbs, Woodville and Flinders Uni, who all have 4. Agra and Adelaide University have 2, Adelaide Inter and Sturt have 1, and Modbury City are yet to open their account. In Division 1 Sunday League, Salisbury Inter have 5, as do Croydon Park. Teams on 4 are Fulham and Elizabeth Vale. Newton have 3, and then 4 clubs have 2 points: Tea Tree Gully, Parafield Gardens, Macedonian and Adelaide Ammonia, with Elizabeth Downs 1 point only. Division 2 sees Tubemakers on top with 5 points. Then we have Para Hills and Para Hills East with 4 points. Next come RG Austria with 3 points. And then it's Paraka, Ross Trevor, Salisbury East, West Beach and I think that's about it. They unfortunately aren't actually in the right sequence. Some of those may not be quite correct on goal differences. They have got them listed, but it's a bit difficult to follow, so I won't waste too much time on it. Okay, just before we look at the cup draw for next week, the reserve game for Salisbury Inter also was played in hot, windy conditions, so I guess that was fairly widespread yesterday. And the players soon looked lethargic, with the only high spots of the first half being in the 8th and 10th minute, when two chances, both by Tony Reeves, went narrowly wide. In the second half, Inter only had to wait until the 30th minute to see Steve Mercurio put an Ammonia defender under pressure and put the ball into his own net. From here the game picked up tempo. After 20 minutes, Steve Mercurio was on hand again to score Inter's second. A few minutes later, Brian Cornish popped in Inter's third. Frank Day and Steve Bellew were substituted by coach John Mann for Angelo Visoni and Alan Hulls, but the scoreline stood 3-0 at full time. Steve Mercurio was named as man of the match. Right, so with about 8 minutes left, we'll have a look at the cup draw and then talk about one or two of the games. Firstly, we'll just read through the draw. All of these games are played on Sunday, unless otherwise stated. Woodside versus Salisbury Florina. Brahma Lodge versus Adelaide Eagles. Tubemakers are at home to Adelaide Inter on Saturday. Para Hills East play San Marco. Brahma United are drawn to play Kilkenny Ramblers, and we're advised that that fixture will be played at Kilkenny Ramblers ground. Grange Lion take on Macedonian United. On Saturday, Woodville play West Torrens Bacalla. Adelaide United are at home to Parabanks. Then on Saturday again, Adelaide University are at home to Salisbury East. Elizabeth Downs play Salisbury Inter. Elizabeth Vale Rangers play Adelaide Portuguese. On Saturday, Agua host Adelaide Hills Onkaparinga. Ingle Farm play Tidri Gully. Noongar United play Modbury City. Elizabeth Field play Eastern Park. Croatia play Post Tell. On Saturday, CBC are at home to Para Vista. Croydon Park play Para Hills. Adelaide Ammonia versus RG Austria. Elizabeth City play Valley View. McGill play Unley United or Salisbury United. Ray, that game been played yet? That cup game, Unley United, Salisbury United, wasn't that going to be a midweek fixture?
Yes.
When?
It's been played.
It has?
Yes.
And the winners were?
Salisbury United.
Salisbury United. Okay, thank you. Saturday, Flinders University play Eastern Suburbs. Eastern City play Colo Colo, and in brackets, Buy. Now, I don't quite understand that, but we'll leave it as it reads. If anybody else understands it, they're a better man than I, Gunga Din. Newton versus Athelston Lions. Campbelltown play Elizabeth Vale. Ross Trevor United are at home to Fulham United. The Cove play Elizabeth South. Seaford tackle West Beach. Paraka at home to Parafoot Gardens. Adelaide Inter on Sunday play Hindmarsh. Sturt Marion play NAB. And finally Calabria play Brighton City. So, Ray, before we talk about those games, perhaps you'd just like to give us the Parabanks Reserves Cup. And by the way, the kick-off times for these games in the Coca-Cola Challenge Cup, 2:45, I think.
2:45.
Yeah, and 12:30 for the reserves, right? Yep.
Parabanks Reserve Cup. These are all Sunday fixtures, unless otherwise stated. Latin America, Brahma Lodge. Adelaide United, Onkaparinga. Elizabeth Downs, Macedonian United. Tubemakers, Adelaide Villa. Salisbury United, Calabria. Para Vista, Salisbury Florina. Newton, Elizabeth Fields. NAB, Blackwood. Saturday fixture, Modbury City, Noongar. Orange Lion, Woodville.
Grange Lion.
Sorry, Grange Lion. Thanks, David. Para Hills East, Woodside. The Cove, Salisbury East. Paraka, McGill. A Saturday fixture, Sturt Marion, Croydon Park. Messinian Association, Elizabeth City, Murraybridge City, Ingle Farm. Saturday fixture, CBC, Para Hills. Also Saturday, Aguilar, Eastern Subs. Saturday fixture also, Adelaide Inter, San Marco. Elizabeth Grove, Campbelltown. RG Austria, Salisbury Villa. Croatia versus Para City, and that's a reverse fixture. Seaford, Fulham United. Broadmeadows, Flinders Uni. Modbury Vista, West Beach. Saturday fixture, Adelaide Uni, Elizabeth Vale. Tea Tree Gully, Athelston Lions. Modbury Jets, Rostrevor United. Salisbury Inter, Parafield Gardens. Eastern City, Powerbanks. Postel, West Orange Bacala. Elizabeth South, Adelaide Ammonia, and that's also a reverse fixture.
Okay. Well, Ray, with just on a couple of minutes up our sleeves, I've just penciled in a half a dozen games. I don't really think there are too many clashes at the early stage of the Cup there that stand out. Unlike one or two of the early rounds of the Cup in the past, there seem to be some fairly average fixtures on paper, but the game's not played on paper, as we all know. Tube Makers versus Adelaide Inter on Saturday. I saw Adelaide Inter on Saturday. I was on the line, in fact, in their game, and they didn't play particularly well, but they did show some signs of being able to play at times, and Tube Makers won't want to take this one too lightly, but I think they should progress without too many hassles. The match of the day, as we said when the draw came out, should be Elizabeth Downs versus Salisbury Inter. Now, Downs, I think, will lift for this game. They've already been beaten by Inter in the league. They're not going particularly brilliantly, as we've heard, but a good cup fighting side, the Downs, and Inter, not a great cup history, really. They've had some surprising results, but I don't fancy them to go out at this stage of the competition. Croydon Park versus Para Hills. Now, this could very well be a very good game. Para Hills must be full of confidence after their 4-0 win on Sunday against West Beach. Croydon Park, of course, taking all before them at the moment. Possibly the game of the day, if not the Inter Downs game, could be Adelaide Ammonia versus RG Austria. That looks a very, very attractive fixture on paper.
I think you've got to go for Ammonia on that one.
Yes, I think so. Rostrevor United versus Fulham United. Fulham should win, but again, Rostrevor got a good cup history. Another game that looks full of interest because of the way they're both playing is the Cove versus Elizabeth South. Elizabeth South won't particularly relish the journey down there, but we're getting a big wind-up, and the final one is Paraka versus Parafield Gardens.
That should be a good one.
Gardens, you know, we always talk about Paraka's ground, and perhaps we shouldn't, but Gardens won't find that one easy. That's all for this week. We hope you've enjoyed the program, and you can join us at the same time next week, the South Australian Amateur Soccer League program here on 5PBFM. Good night from David Brandon
and Ray Topless.
See you next week.